We want to discuss all this with Senator Lindsey Graham, a key member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Senator, welcome back to Fox News, Sonny, and happy Easter.
Happy Easter. A lot to talk about.
Well, let's start with the situation in Russia, the launch of a powerful new missile, those mass expulsions. Here's how Russia's ambassador to the U.S. described the situation.
It seems to me that atmosphere in Washington is poisoned. It's a toxic atmosphere.
How serious is the split now between Moscow and Washington?
I think it's pretty ironic that he used the word poison. One of the reasons we're expelling diplomats is because the Russian intelligence services, most likely with Putin's blessing, poisoned a British citizen and his daughter, a former Russian agent in the United Kingdom. So this is the 80s to me all over. I can tell you what Ronald Reagan did. Every time the Russians tried to advance their military technology, we one-upped them. Every time the Russians started running wild throughout the world, Reagan pushed back. So if I were Trump, I'd look at the Reagan playbook and economically isolate Russia. I would study every major recipient of Russia oil and gas and to see if we could find ways to supply those countries with oil and gas somewhere from a source outside of Russia.
I want to pick up on the president's action because while the Trump administration has taken some actions, imposed some sanctions the week before last, President Trump himself has been reluctant to call out Vladimir Putin. In fact, here's how he talked about his call to congratulate Putin after he won his re-election victory. Take a look.
We had a very good call, and I suspect that we'll probably be meeting in the not-too-distant future to discuss the arms race.
Senator, do we need a Trump-Putin summit meeting, or do we need President Trump first to take some stronger actions against Russia?
Let's go back to the Reagan playbook. He stood up in front of the Berlin Wall and said, tear this wall down, on the other side's an evil empire. Then he wound up meeting with Gorbachev to try to reduce the number of nuclear weapons. I think the problem is that Russia's running wild. Whatever we're doing is not working, and the president, for some reason, has a hard time pushing back against Putin directly. So again, they're an oil and gas economy. They couldn't survive very long without customers. So if I were President Trump, Germany and Europe, France, I would try to cut off all of their customers and provide alternatives to their customers for oil and gas outside of Russia. That's what I'd do.
Speaking of summits, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un made a surprise visit to Beijing this week to meet with Chinese President Xi as Kim prepares for a summit meeting with President Trump next month. And according to the Chinese, Kim is now calling for phased, synchronized moves to denuclearize his country. Question, does that concern you that according to what the Chinese said after the meeting between Kim and Xi, that the North Korean leader Kim now wants concessions from both sides and longer negotiations?
Yeah, it could, but let me just highlight one thing. The reason that North Korea is at the table is that this maximum pressure campaign against North Korea launched by the Trump administration, where the world is beginning to follow, has paid off. They're coming to the table because it has hurt so much. And the president has called out Kim Jong-un by name for being the tyrant he is. Now we've got an opportunity, historic in nature, to sit down and maybe not only get him to give up his nuclear weapons, but to end the Korean War, which is still going on. But yes, I'd be very cautious about the terms and conditions of this meeting, and this is why I like John Bolton as National Security Advisor. He is a very healthy skepticism in North Korea, but I do hope President Trump will meet with North Korea.
Well, I just want to pick up on that. You say you want to be careful about the terms of the meeting. If what Kim says he has in mind with longer negotiations, concessions on both sides, it sounds kind of like the negotiations that prior presidents have had with the North Korean regime, with Kim's father. Do we still want to have the summit?
We don't want to give them 9 months or a year to talk and build a missile at the same time. So I had dinner with Bolton a couple of nights ago. His big fear is that they're just buying time. They're about 9 months to a year away of having a missile with a nuclear weapon on top that can hit America. He sees these negotiations as a way of buying time. That's what they've done in the past. So I'd cut them off at the pass there. I would make sure the negotiations were very focused and get quick action. Here's the goal of the negotiations: to make sure that North Korea gives up their nuclear program. Japan and South Korea, they don't have nukes. There's no reason for North Korea to have a nuclear program. They will sell anything they build. That's their history. And maybe get a peace treaty with North Korea, South Korea, the United States, and China, but not let this drag on a very long time.
Meanwhile, President Trump started talking this week about pulling all of our 2,000 troops out of Syria who are there supporting the effort against ISIS. And we learned yesterday he has frozen $200 million in funds for recovery efforts there. Here is the president on Syria this week.
We'll be coming out of Syria like very soon. Let the other people take care of it now.
Is President Trump making a mistake talking about getting out of Syria while ISIS is still alive, obviously diminished, but still in the field, and while Iran is still pushing, and some could say helping the Assad regime win the civil war?
Well, Mr. President, when it comes to Russia, read the Ronald Reagan playbook. When it comes to Syria, do not read the Obama playbook. This is the Obama playbook. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. This is a disaster in the making. All of his military advisors have said we need to leave troops in Syria to work with the Kurds, calm down the conflict between Turkey and the Kurdish fighters who have helped us, make sure that Raqqa does not fall back into the hands of ISIL. There are over 3,000 ISIS fighters still roaming around Syria. We've got troops there to protect us and to protect the region. If we withdrew our troops anytime soon, ISIS would come back, the war between the Turkey and the Kurds would get out of hand, and you'd be giving Damascus to the Iranians without an American presence, and Russia and Iran would dominate Syria. It'd be the single worst decision the president could make. I've seen this movie before when Obama did the same thing in Iraq and quite frankly gave Assad a pass in Syria when he had him on the ropes. We got ISIL on the ropes. You want to let him off the ropes, remove American soldiers.
You have talked, we also want to talk about some domestic issues. You have called for a second special counsel to investigate the FBI and the Justice Department and how they conducted both the Clinton investigation and the Trump investigation. But the Inspector General, who is independent, says he's looking into that. And this week, the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, named John Huber, the U.S. Attorney from Utah, to conduct his own investigation into those matters. Does that move satisfy you, or do you still want a second special counsel?
Well, some people say it's a good start. Some people say it's an insufficient process. I don't know yet. The jury's still out regarding Mr. Huber, but I do know this, that if you had tried this when it came to the Trump campaign, not appoint a special counsel, but take some U.S. attorney outside of Washington and let them look at the Trump-Russia connection, the left would have went crazy saying this deserves a special counsel. My belief is it should be a special counsel. And here's the question. I want a special counsel with the same determination and resources to look at the abuses of the FISA process. Was the Clinton email investigation a sham? Were there conflicts of interest in the Justice Department? I want a special counsel to be appointed with the same resources and the same determination to look at those issues as Mueller is looking at the Trump campaign, and I don't see that yet.
Finally, as you said, we had a lot to cover. This week, the president fired the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, and he named the White House doctor, Admiral Ronnie Jackson, to take that job. Jackson, who famously gave President Trump a clean bill of health. Take a look.
I would say the answer to your question is he has incredibly good genes, and it's just the way God made him.
You called this a home run pick for veterans, and there's no question that Admiral Jackson is was a great combat surgeon. The question that everybody is raising is whether or not he's equipped, has the experience to run an agency with 360,000 employees and an annual budget of $186 billion. Why doesn't that concern you? And how much trouble do you think Admiral Jackson's going to have being confirmed?
One, I think he'll get confirmed because he's made life and death decisions on the battlefield. He's commanded medical personnel on the battlefield. He's been in the middle of this war. I was with him a week ago, I guess 2 weeks ago now, at an event in Charleston, and he had no idea this was coming. I had no idea it was coming, but we started talking about the Veterans Administration, and he said to me something that was very satisfying. Somebody needs to take that place and turn it upside down. Somebody needs to make sure that no veteran has to wait too long or drive too far to get basic health care. I want competition for the veterans' health care. I want the VA to stay in existence, but if a veteran waits too long or lives too far away from a facility, I want the private sector to fill in that gap. And Admiral Jackson has that same mentality, and you need somebody to go into the VA who's willing to fight the bureaucracy. And I think Admiral Jackson's a good pick because he's been on the battlefield. He knows what the fight's all about.
Senator Grimm, thank you. Thanks for your time this holiday weekend.
Thank you.
It was a busy set of questions, and we got it all in. Always good to talk with you, sir.
Thank you. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you.